Greetings everyone. So today's topic is navigating ICD. So we have seen in the last class about the different types of codes that we can look forward to while doing medical coding. ICD is the first one. Now we had already discussed where is the origin of ICD. ICD is uh, managed and everything, whatever changes, everything. So the whole control of ICD codes, the origin, the management, everything is under WHO. That is World Health Organization. Okay. ICD had the first ICD that came into existence was ICD-9. After revision, it was upgraded to ICD-10. Right now we also have ICD-11, but ICD-11 is not completely uh, accepted, or completely it's not under complete operation still now. So still we are following ICD-10. Okay. So because of these revisions, we have, or updates you can say, we have ICD-9, 10, and now 11. But currently also we are still using ICD-10 because getting ICD-9 into complete operations, it will take some time. In India also, we use ICD-10 at some places as of now. Facts about ICD-10 codes. ICD-10 codes provide a detailed classification for disease, injuries, medical conditions, helping healthcare providers accurately document diagnosis and treatment. We had already discussed what are the different codes and what are the uses of the different codes. When we were discussing that, we had already discussed that ICD-10, that is International Classification of Diseases, is for the diagnosis. Okay, whenever a patient comes to a doctor, he presents a set of signs and symptoms. Okay, the patient might say, I am having cold and cough, fever since 3 to 4 days. Patient might say, I'm having stomach ache with vomiting and loose motions. Patient might come with a swelling and a bruise on the leg. Okay? So depending on what signs and symptoms the patient is telling, what kind of examination findings the doctor is having, we give a certain name to the disease. Okay. Now, if I say stomach ache, now stomach ache could be because of minor gastritis. Stomach ache could be because of some ulceration. Stomach ache could be because of some more grave cancerous diseases also. Okay. So a single symptom can be associated with many diseases. So we cannot be treating all the diseases, right? We want to treat one disease with a certain medication or a certain line of treatment, right? So for the purpose of selection of treatment and medication, we always need to zero down to some diagnosis. Okay, we need to name it. Okay, that's the reason why diagnosis is very important when it comes to healthcare management. When there is no diagnosis, the management is always chaotic. Okay, because we don't know what exactly are we treating, right? If there is a minor gastritis for stomach ache, okay, and I am giving chemotherapy, that's not correct, right? If there is a cancerous issue and I'm just giving antacids, okay, that is also not going to help the disease, right? So for proper treatment and medication, we always need to know what is the diagnosis, right? So coming to the medical coding, ICD codes are also extremely important in terms of coding system. Okay, because diagnosis is extremely important. So looking forward, even ICD codes are very important. So you need to understand what is the diagnosis. Okay, what is the medical condition? Where are you going to look up to that medical condition? There are different chapters, right? So there is a chapter dealing with gastric issues. There is a chapter dealing with eyes, ears, nose. There's a chapter related to pregnancy diseases. There's chapter related to mental diseases. There's chapter related to neurological diseases, right? There's chapter related to cardiovascular diseases. So we have different systems, we have different chapters associated in your ICD, mentioned in your ICD-10 codes. Okay, so if I have a patient with hypertension, okay, so I know what is hypertension. Okay, I understand what is the diagnosis. So where am I going to look into? Where am I going to look into? I'm going to look into cardiovascular chapter, right? If there is a renal disease associated with hypertension, then which is more important? Where am I going to look into? I'm going to look into hypertension, but I'm going to also look into the code which is mentioning both hypertension and renal disease, right? Likewise, if I have a fracture, what kind of fracture it is, which chapter I'm going to look into, right? So in fracture also, we have two types of fracture. One is because of pathological illness, right? Your bones are already weak, so anything can cause a fracture. But if you are going in a vehicle and you have a motor vehicular accident, and that's a traumatic fracture. So if it's a traumatic fracture, which chapter I'm going to look? I'm going to look into chapter which is explaining injuries and poisoning. If there is a pathological fracture, I'm going to look into musculoskeletal disease, right? So this is how we need to understand where is that diagnosis coming from, what is that diagnosis explaining, and how I'm going to look into the ICD-10 code manual. Next is ICD-10 offers great specificity than previous versions with expanded codes that allow for more precise medical reporting and billing. So when ICD codes came into existence, the first was ICD-9. Okay? So healthcare practice, anything related to healthcare is always very extensive and vast, and it is ever changing. Okay? Like we never thought about a COVID to come. Now because of COVID, we have codes, medical codes related to COVID, right? So when we had ICD-9, it was the first set of ICD codes. Obviously, with trials, errors, experience, and research, we updated to ICD-10. Okay, to give a more better clarity to the different diagnosis. Okay, so like if I have like fracture, so fracture of which leg? Right leg, left leg, right? So this clarity was not there in ICD-9. It is more better than explained in ICD-10. So it's a fracture. It's the first time the is the fracture the first time patient is coming? It's a follow up, or it's a sequel of some previous disease. Okay. So we have more better specificity, clarity in ICD-10 codes. Okay. ICD-11, of course, is anyways better than ICD-10, but implication of these codes require some time. Okay. So as of now, the implication of ICD-11 is not done worldwide. So right now we are still on ICD-10. Okay. So international classification of diseases, it's used for diagnosing conditions. Obviously, we are using it for medical billing, insurance, and patient records. Okay. Now, adaptation of ICD codes. Now, ICD codes, I told you, is managed by WHO. Okay, World Health Organization. ICD is there in many countries. It is adapted in many countries. Now, US has adapted in two forms. Okay. Now, ICD-9 had three volumes, volume 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So ICD-9 Volume 1 and 2 was adapted as ICD-10 CM, that is clinical modification, and ICD-9 Volume 3 was adapted as ICD-10 PCS, that is procedure coding system. Okay. And we also have, so this is how we have ICD-10 CM and ICD-10 PCS, which is an adaptation of the US healthcare system of the ICD-10 codes. Okay. And we also have in ICD-10 the mortality and morbidity statistics. Okay. So in ICD-10, mortality and morbidity codes are more better explained as compared to ICD-9. Now, ICD codes are alphanumeric. Okay, there is first is a letter followed by numbers. Okay, there could be other letters also like A, D, E, like it's an initial diagnosis, follow-up, sequel, and there are other alphabets also explaining the reason for that code. So whenever we have a code, okay, it's a 7 character, 3 to 7 characters. So each character has a meaning. Okay, it is not just randomly I'm just putting any number and alphabet. It's not like that. So like if I'm talking about this code J45909, okay, there is some meaning to it. Okay, now J is a chapter resonating respiratory system. Okay, so we have I as cardiovascular system. Okay, so we have N is renal disease. Okay, diseases to kidneys. Okay, so we have different letters representing different system or condition. Okay, like we can have neoplastic diseases. We might have chapter related to infections and blood diseases. Okay, so like that. So first letter is your indication of what chapter it is coming from. Is asthma. Okay, asthma is related to respiratory system. So I'm going to look into the chapter which is dealing with respiratory system, and that chapter will have character J. Okay. So every letter that so first 3 letters always like representing what category it is. Okay. Like if I talk about like respiratory system, it has to be G. Okay. Now in respiratory system, there are different diagnoses. In different diagnoses, there might be sub-diagnosis, right? So first 3 letters is your categories. Okay. So first is your letter. Okay, that is A, B, C, D, E, whatever letter. The second 2 are your numbers. So first 3 letters comprise of your category. Okay. Now we put a point. Okay, and then we have remaining reasons of why we are putting that number. Okay. Now the next 3 characters. Okay, they can be alpha or numeric. Okay, it can be number or a letter. So what are these numbers or letters representing? They might represent an anatomic site. They might represent a category. They might represent severity. They might represent a laterality. Okay. So that is your next 3 characters. And the last character is an extension. Okay. Like if I like just now I talked about initial diagnosis or follow. Okay. So initial will be A. So if I have a certain set of codes and last I have an A, okay, that indicates that this is an initial diagnosis. Okay. If I have D, then that means it's a follow. Okay. If there is an S, that means it's a sequel. Okay. There are other characters also which represent other extensions. We can talk about it when we do in detail explanation about this. Okay. So this is a basic understanding. So the codes are not just randomly putting any number or a name. It is representing certain things. That's the reason why we have a certain. Now, if I talk about laterality, so there is 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is always right, 2 is always left, and 3 is bilateral. Okay. So when I have something like that in the numerical section, okay, like in the next three ones, so I know. So if I have a right, I should always have that one over there in that category. If it's a left, I should always have two in that space. Okay. So like that, we need to decide. It's just not random explanation or set of words. ICD-10 offers greater specificity than previous versions with expanded codes that allow for more precise medical coding, reporting, and billing. So we have already mentioned ICD-10 is more better explaining mortality, morbidity, poisonous cases, laterality, follow-ups, that is episode of care that we call it. It's a new patient follow-up like that. Okay. So everything is very detailed explained in ICD-10 as compared to ICD-9. So when we want to select a code, so a patient is no two patient is going to represent very same. Okay, there is always some sort of difference. So ICD-9 as compared to ICD-9, ICD-10 is more better explaining all these situations or details. Okay, so we use ICD code manuals. You also have software tools. Okay, EHR systems with built-in coding. Okay, so we have different EHR systems also. See, we are in a system. We are part of a system which is still updating and evolving. Okay, for a better practice. Okay, so earlier we had EHRs. Now EHRs is also updating itself so that we have a better uniform experience of a better quality care to the patient, as well as we have a better process of reimbursement for the physician. Okay, and also the system which benefits the patient. Okay, so we are ever evolving. So earlier we had manuals, now we also have software tools. Now it is also incorporated in EHR system, so we don't have to really look into, like, navigate between the datas, and less time consuming, we can say. Now, what are the common medical coding mistakes that we can look into? First, very important, neglecting training and education. You are part of the course, but you are not attending the course. You are not going through the recorded sessions. You are not learning. So obviously, it's not going to help, be it any course. Second, inadequate understanding of documentation. Again, it is not a puzzle that you need to solve. Even if you have to solve a puzzle, you need to understand what that puzzle is, first of all. Okay. So it is not just, okay, I see in that document, okay, I saw that hypertension. Okay, I'm just going to select that. It's not like that. Okay. You need to understand the documentation. What is that documentation telling you? You are not directly in front of the patient. You are at the back. Only the physician is in front of the patient, and he has documented everything what the physician observed and what the patient said. Okay, so you need to first understand what is happening between the what is happening in that clinical note.